Costa Rica was such a magical place for my own personal healing. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why that is. I'm sure that there are so many other places on this planet that have the same feel and would fulfill the same purpose, but this was the first time that I traveled with the intention of healing and finding out more about myself. And Costa Rica did nothing but show me that that was the place to do it. So in this video, I'm going to share my reason for going to Costa Rica. I'm going to share a little bit about the culture, the food, the people, and then also talk a little bit about my actual healing experiences that I had the amazing opportunity of doing and having while in Costa Rica. So, first things first, why Costa Rica? So I had been looking for a specific type of therapy for a while. I had done therapy in the past, but I just felt like the traditional form of therapy wasn't good enough for me. It wasn't really doing what I was looking for, which was trying to help me remove a lot of blockages, help me overcome certain fears, and kind of reverse a few beliefs that I had that I was really trying to do on my own, but it just wasn't really working. So I began a bunch of Google searches. I think I was on Google for about 2 weeks before I came across a specific therapist who seemed to check all of the boxes that I had. She specializes in hypnotherapy, and I reached out to her, scheduled a consultation, and I just knew immediately, like, this is the person I wanted to work with. In addition to me looking for therapy, I had also felt as though I was ready to venture out into another country because I've solo traveled in the past, but I was like, I kind of want to look into a retreat, something that's dedicated and centered around healing. And it was through this therapist that I was not only able to schedule my therapy sessions with her, I also found out that she lived in Costa Rica and she had very close ties to someone who owns an eco lodge out there. So I was just kind of like, wow, this is like perfect. She was like, come to Costa Rica, I will treat you there, and on top of it, you get to stay at this eco lodge where it's a yoga retreat. And I was just like, boom, boom, boom. All of my checks have been marked off. And so a month goes by and I am finally in Costa Rica. Best decision I had ever made. I decided to go a week early with a friend, just to kind of adjust to being in another country before jumping right into the yoga retreat and jumping right into the healing sessions. And that also was a really good decision. So I got the opportunity to explore San Jose, which is the capital of Costa Rica, which was so beautiful, by the way. And I also got the opportunity to explore the coastal side, Tamarindo, which is where I stayed for my yoga retreat and where I received my healing and my plant medicine, which I will be talking about later in the video. I stayed in San Jose for the first week that I was there, and it was such a beautiful city. First thing I noticed was that everyone was so nice there. If you've ever traveled to South America or Central America and you've gotten the opportunity to stay in a city, I found this to be very similar to Mexico City in a way. In terms of the weather, the climate, the people, the food, everything reminded me a lot of Mexico City. If you're staying in San Jose, it rains about every single day at around 5 p.m. But I personally kind of liked it because my friend and I would work from home because we both work remotely, and by 1 o'clock-ish we'd go out exploring. By 4 or 5 we'd settle down, found a spot for dinner, and then the rain would only last about an hour or two, and then head back to our Airbnb, which was very cute, by the way, and just kind of end their night that way. So in a way, the rain was just kind of like the start of the end of the night, which I personally enjoyed a lot. There was something very peaceful about the city as well. It was a very quiet place, except for the weekends when things tend to get really active, which, it's just people going out, having a great time, and we got the opportunity to kind of get a taste of that when I go back to San Jose, I will definitely be doing a lot more of the festivities and those sort of things. I did get a chance to do an excursion to see a few of some of the beautiful things that San Jose has to offer. I went to a coffee bean place where they harvest coffee beans, and then we got the opportunity to visit a waterfall and see some beautiful animals that they have there. So that's San Jose. My next stop was to Tamarindo, which is on the other side of the country. I took a small plane, very small plane, to Tamarindo, and when I landed, it screams tropical. It was such a beautiful place. Although where I was staying was very rural, I felt as though I was in a very tropical, almost Caribbean style. They consider Tamarindo the Caribbean coast of the country, and it did give me that vibe of being in the Caribbean. I went during their winter. Their winter is like 80 degrees Fahrenheit and rainy. That's winter for them. Great, beautiful scenery, beautiful people, etc. And speaking of that, let's get into the culture. The people, the food, the atmosphere, the energy, everything about this place was just so chill. I think a lot of times coming from America, we are a very busy society. We're very stressed out and we're workaholics compared to most other countries. It doesn't really give us time to just be and to do things that we enjoy. I know most of my channel is about getting to that point where we can do that because that's what we're meant to do. But in Costa Rica, I found that a lot of people were already there. They already knew what it was that brought them joy. They already knew what it was that they needed to survive, and the bare minimum at that. We don't need anything extravagant. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I ran into a lot of expats that were coming there for that very reason. They just love the pura vida, the pure life. They just love the fact that life was just so simple. And I could feel that from the locals as well, because they just have this energy around them of peace. In terms of the language, a lot of people were willing to speak English, but my whole point is to learn Spanish. So I would be like, no, let's talk this through in Spanish. Habla español, pero un poquito. I loved speaking with the locals. It was learning about them through their lens was something that reminded me of why I love to travel. And they were more than willing to speak with me, whether it was in English or whether it was in Spanish. We were just always helping each other out. The food, oh my goodness. The food was just so fresh. And for me, I'm mostly vegetarian and pescatarian, so I kind of switch back and forth. I don't really like to put a label on it. I do what my body tells me to do, and that's it. But in Costa Rica, there was an abundance of vegetarian cuisine and a lot of seafood. So I did want to try some of their local seafood because, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, that sort of thing. But their seafood was just so fresh. Their overall food, a lot of rice and beans and huevos, eggs. I think that, yes, eggs. A lot of fresh food. The flavors reminded me of growing up and my grandmother cooking. My family is Jamaican, so it had a lot of Caribbean influences. We eat the plantains with rice and beans, and you have your side of protein. That was most of the meals that we had in Costa Rica, but again, everything was so flavorful. The diet was predominantly vegetarian, so anywhere you go, you could get a very good vegetarian meal from any restaurant in the country. I guarantee it. The culinary experiences that I got to have in San Jose, 10 out of 10, just such beautiful ambiances, the presentation, everything, the flavors, the gastronomy that they use in their cuisines, especially in the city. I didn't do much of the culinary exploration when I went to Tamarindo. However, just overall food, culture, people, scenery, everything beautiful. Now let's get to the real reason why I went, and this was for my own personal healing. And I took a ton of notes because it was just such a profound experience for me. It actually took me about 2 weeks to recover. I'm actually recording this video 2 weeks after my trip to Costa Rica. I did 3 sessions with my regression therapist. I did a past life regression, which essentially you go under hypnosis and you go to a past lifetime where the root of your trauma or whatever the issue that you want to address. Me personally, it was my issues of trust. I had terrible trust issues, and it started to kind of consume my life in so many areas within my own personal relationships. It stopped me from doing a lot of the things that I knew I could do, so I had trust issues with my own self. And I wanted to really get to the root of this. Obviously, we have a lot of things that we want to resolve and a lot of things that we want to work through, but for me in particular, I really wanted to focus in on trust because that seemed to be the biggest issue at the time for me. So with the past life regression, I was able to go back into a past lifetime where this trust was broken, and I was able to work with my past self on understanding that, this was a circumstance then, it is no longer necessary or needed now. Let me go back and resolve this and work through this with my past self so that it no longer has a hold on me now. And if we get into quantum physics and all this stuff, I don't know, whatever you believe in, we tend to think that time is just linear, but it's not. I don't know the exact scientific terms as to why that is, but with this regression, it kind of showed me that everything is happening all at once, but it's affecting us all at the same time. So that being said, we have the ability to go back in time and resolve this issue and have it reflect on our current self just by doing that work. So it's not a situation where this happened here and now we're here and you can't go and fix it so that your self now is good. No, that's not the case. I hope that made sense. With that past life regression, I was able to figure out the root cause of my traumas and I was able to resolve it. But then I was able to, a few sessions later, when I did the current life regression, current life regression is where you go back in your current lifetime and you determine where in your current lifetime did this trauma come about. For me, it was in my mother's womb. So I found out that this wasn't even my trauma to carry, but while I was in my mother's womb, and this is another term that I mentioned, epigenetics. So epigenetic trauma, epigenetic anything really. So it was at this point that I realized my trauma related to trust was further solidified in this current lifetime while I was in the womb. And I was like, so not only was this not my baggage to carry, it emphasized what I had been carrying into this lifetime from a past lifetime. So with this session, with my current life regression, I was able to also let that go. There are some, tactics that the therapist will use with you on letting that go, addressing it, obviously, understanding it, and then letting it go. Before I get to the third form of regression therapy that I did want to talk about my experience with plant medicine. I personally went with ayahuasca. I was given the opportunity to try bufo and I can't think of the other name right now, but ayahuasca seemed to be the one that resonated with me the most, given its benefits and its purpose. And that was to, again, remove any fears, blockages that I might have had, to detox my body fully, to help me address certain things about myself that would help me move forward in this lifetime. With my ayahuasca experience, there were several visions that I got while I was under the influence of Mama Aya, which is what I like to call it, because that's what it felt like. It felt like this grandmother love that most people describe when you listen to people talk about ayahuasca. It felt like universal love. I understood all of our senses, and I understood that everything comes back to frequency and sound and love. And love is a frequency, by the way. So I was able to feel that and see it and hear it and touch it and taste it. All of the senses just showed me what it was like to have this infinite love that was surrounding me. And obviously this was the plant medicine showing me this. I also had visions of things that I needed to address in this current lifetime. I had visions of what it was that I was here to do in this lifetime, and I had such a profound experience with the medicine. I will say that if anyone is going to take this, definitely do your research. I had been researching ayahuasca for over the past 3 years, and I've been saying since I was in school that I would one day take ayahuasca, and it took me about 3 years to finally get to the point where I felt as though I was ready. All of the stars kind of aligned for me to do this while I was in Costa Rica, so I'm very blessed for that. But if you are planning to take the plant medicine, be sure to do your research. Make sure you have the right intention and purpose behind it. Make sure that you are spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally prepared to take something like ayahuasca. Before I took the medicine, I did do like a 7-day detox, so absolutely no drugs or alcohol. You have to do a special diet, so no dairy. There are very specific things that you have to do before taking any form of plant medicine. So again, if you are going somewhere to do it, if you're going to be with a shaman, make sure that you take the proper steps to doing so. I think my experience overall was very pleasurable because of the work that I did prior to even taking the medicine, such as healing a lot of my past life and current life traumas. One thing to keep in mind if you are planning to do ayahuasca is that there is going to be some form of release, whether it's through vomiting, whether it's through diarrhea, or whether, in my case, I had done the preliminary work as I mentioned, so I didn't have as much emotional or toxicity sitting there waiting to come out. My experience, I was burping a lot and I was yawning a lot because the burping is releasing a lot of the gas, the excess toxins, and then the yawning was me allowing the energy to come in, allowing the plant medicine to do its work, as well as releasing anything else that I was holding on to. A few days after, I will say you want to be prepared to not sleep. I knew I needed to sleep because as humans we need sleep, right? But I just felt so rested that I didn't actually sleep fully for the next 2 days or so. After, you do have some residual effects, and again, this all depends on the preliminary work that you did before taking the plant medicine. Those residual effects for me was just kind of letting go the rest of whatever needed to be let go. So whether that was through visions that I was having while I was resting, or whether it was through bodily detoxing, within the following week just felt like a completely new person. I do recommend, again, doing this with a shaman or with a group because you will need some sort of integration. And again, this is where my third form of therapy or regression came into play. So with this third regression session that I had, I was able to go back into my, first we did my soul tribe. So I was able to meet my soul tribe. And then I was able to go and meet to the point where my soul got to decide which lifetime did I want to come into, because we have a choice. We choose which life we want to have, and it's all part of our experience. It's all part of our soul's journey to learn and grow. And so I was able to go back to that point, and I, found out why I chose this life, and I understood that, and I was like, okay, now let's go to my generational trauma. Let's address that now. Now that I know what it was that I came into this lifetime to do, the purpose, the reason why I chose this body, this family, let's better understand what's going on with my family that I chose to come into. And I was able to address exactly where this generational curse or this generational trauma began. And I was able to, like my past lifetime and my current lifetime, address it, understand it, and release it. And when you're releasing, you find that your body tends to shake. You might, your leg might shake, or you might begin crying and you just don't know why. But this is a form of emotional release because the trauma is stored in our body. Therefore, you're going to feel it when you release. It's gonna hurt. Imagine having an appendage for your entire life, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're gonna take this out. It's gonna hurt. And so that's what trauma is. Trauma is an appendage that sticks with us our entire life until we decide to take it off. Initially, it's going to hurt, but in the long run, you're gonna feel much lighter, you're gonna feel more flexible, you're gonna feel like you can do much more now that you don't have this additional appendage stuck to you. What I've learned overall from my trip to Costa Rica, my healing journey, my trip with Mama Aya, is that ultimately everything comes back to frequency. Whether it's vibrational frequency, whether it's sound, whether it's touch, whether it's a feeling that we give to someone else or a feeling that we emit, everything comes back to frequencies. Love is a frequency. Love is the highest frequency, the best frequency that we can operate from. That's one thing that I learned. Another thing that I learned is that healing cannot be done on just the conscious level alone. There are so many layers that are ingrained into us that we have to go deeper. We have to go to the root, and we have to truly understand a lot of the time our trauma is not our trauma. There are people who experience, devastating traumas in this lifetime. However, there are other people who seem to have, pretty decent lives, and they're not understanding why they still feel the way that they feel. Why do they feel blocked? Why do they have fears? Where are these coming from? And it's because we have to go deeper and look below the surface to fully heal ourselves. And then we can come back above the surface and continue to do the work to maintain our high level of vibrations, our high frequencies, because we now are no longer carrying whatever was in ours, or whatever came from a previous lifetime, or whatever came from our parents, our ancestors. Whatever the case is, healing has to be done on a subconscious level. I've also learned to travel more with intention and purpose, and it makes for a much greater experience, even if that intention is just to relax, or if that intention is to learn something new, or if that intention is to meet people that are going to change your life. I just find that having some sort of North Star when you are traveling or when you are experiencing new things is so important. Speaking of experiences, this whole thing, whatever your beliefs are, whatever, if you follow a specific religion, if you're spiritual, whatever the case is, all of this is about experience. So whenever you get the opportunity, I implore you to take advantage of as many experiences as possible, but only do it if you want to. All of those experiences that you want to do, I promise you won't regret doing it, because that's what this is all about. At the end of the day, when all things are said and done, in this lifetime at least, you are only going to have your experiences and I guess we would consider these memories, but that's all you have at the end of the day. And you want to be able to smile. You want to be able to feel the love through all of those experiences. Everything comes back to frequency, love, experiences, health, and healing, so that you can experience all of these. So that was my experience in Costa Rica. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you got something out of it. And if anything, I hope that you are able to experience something like that at least once in your lifetime, because I think everyone should. I definitely will be going back, but in the meantime, I will be exploring other places that also offer the same benefits to my own personal growth and my own personal healing so that I can then share them with you all.